Yeah, I think most people, if you just simply look at the birth rate statistics, you can tell what the future is going to be like because you can see how many children were born last year. And then you could say, like, is the birth rate trending down or up? And it's been trending down basically almost everywhere. So if you look at the birth rate last year, you know how many adults there will be in 20 years because that's how many babies were born. The trend is, like you don't have to be some master statistician or something like that. You can just look at kids born last year trending to well below replacement rate. And a lot of countries have been well below replacement rate for a long time.
Well, the concern is that if you have kids, then they'll contribute to climate change and then they'll kill the Earth, right? That's the leftist concern, is that we're overpopulating the Earth and that we're going to kill it. Are you trying to overpopulate the Earth so that we can go to Mars and take over Mars?
The Earth is far from overpopulated.
Is this a deliberate strategy?
The Earth is far from overpopulated. Far from overpopulated. So the thing that's necessary to minimize the chemical change to the atmosphere and oceans is to move to sustainable energy generation and consumption. So the three elements of a sustainable energy future are sustainable energy generation, primarily through solar, wind, some geothermal, hydro, and nuclear. Although they're shutting down all the nuclear power stations, so you can sort of cross that one off the list. Which they shouldn't be doing. They should keep moving. They're really, unless a nuclear power plant is in a region of major natural disasters,
like instability or something. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to be subject to massive natural disasters because obviously that could be a problem. But if you're, like say Germany or France or whatever, they don't have those, so the nuclear power is very safe. But anyway, the long term, the heavy lifting on energy generation will be solar, followed by wind, and you really don't need a very large land area to generate enough power to power, for example, the United States. So it's on the order of, roughly a little over 100 miles by 100 miles a section of land with solar panels would power the entire United States. So like a little corner of Utah or Texas, it can power the whole country. So. Anyway, so it's really not that hard. The solar incidence is a gigawatt per square kilometer. For most nuclear,
I'm just going to do some calculations.
Most nuclear power plants.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a kilowatt per square meter, and there's a million square meters in a square kilometer. So it's pretty simple math. So. And then you get like maybe 20% efficiency on that, so call it like a net power generation of 200 megawatts per square kilometer. Now, if you take most nuclear power plants, there's usually a pretty big clear area around a nuclear power plant because people don't usually want to live right next to a nuclear power plant. So the area of most nuclear power plants that is uninhabited, if covered in solar panels, would generate more power than the nuclear power plant. And then the second element that's needed are batteries to store solar and wind because the sun doesn't shine all the time and the wind doesn't blow all the time. So the intermittency of solar and wind requires battery storage for continuous power. So that's the second part of the second pillar of sustainable energy. And the third is sustainable transport. So that means electric cars, boats, planes. And then, ironically, the one thing that you can't really make electric is rockets, and I was involved in that. But although you can, over time, use solar power to generate fuel by pulling CO2 out of the atmosphere, combining it with H2O, creating CH4, which is methane, and O2, oxygen. And rockets are mostly oxygen by mass. So over time, you can make everything basically solar power. My taxes are actually not that complicated. I do not have any offshore accounts. I don't have any tax shelters. I have basically Tesla and SpaceX stock, and Tesla is publicly traded, so all information is public. And SpaceX is, a C corp that is audited. It has outside auditors, so it'll with outside investors. So it is. Everything is extremely transparent. There is no There are no elaborate sort of tax avoidance schemes or anything like that. So H&R Block could easily do my taxes. I don't need H&R Block. I could do it.
Yeah.
It would probably take me a few hours to do my taxes. It's very basic.
Did you sell that stock in Tesla because of the Twitter poll?
In part.
Had you made up your mind that you were already going to do that before the Twitter poll?
I have some Tesla options that are expiring next year. So I needed to exercise those options no matter what. And I was like, okay, I'll move forward and exercise those options. So that certainly would be part of it no matter what. But then over and above that, I sold incremental stock to try to get up to the 10% level. So just the option exercise alone would not get to 10%. So I sold stock that should be roughly make my total Tesla share sale roughly 10%. Yeah, I think it's just important to understand like what is this wealth? It's not like I've got like some massive cash balance. My cash balances are very, very low. And at least until I sold stock, which is really the first time I've actually sold stock in any meaningful way, was this quarter. I simply had loans against my stock. So if Tesla and SpaceX went bankrupt, I would go bankrupt too immediately. So
it's not realized, is what you're saying. Yeah, it's not.
No, it's just like people. It's like I built these two companies, and it was extremely difficult to build them. Like massively painful and difficult, rewarding too, but massively painful and difficult. And I didn't sell the stock in the companies. My sort of impression was that you shouldn't take money off the table, or you shouldn't take stock off the table and de-risk things. That a captain should go down, with their ship. So it's like, okay, I don't want to take money off the table, and then if the companies fail, then I'll be sort of enriched while investors suffer, and that does not seem right. So anyway, that's the reason I didn't sell. Is I could easily have diversified and protected myself financially if SpaceX or Tesla went bankrupt, but I did not. And SpaceX and Tesla came very close to bankruptcy many times. Even when bankruptcy was literally weeks away, I did not sell stock. And then the companies became valuable. Tesla's value and SpaceX's value is not up to me. It's up to investors. And they decided Tesla was worth $1 trillion in the public market. And I own 20% of the company. So
you're not apologizing right now? You're not going to look into the camera and say, I'm so sorry?
Look in the camera right now.
I'm just trying to explain, I don't think people necessarily understand.
They don't, yeah.
That this is not, some function of sort of hoarding or something. It's simply that, I own 20% of the company that became very valuable as decided by external investors. So then I was like, well, unless I sell shares, there's no actual mechanism to pay tax. Mm-hmm. So then I was like, well, should I sell 10%, in order to pay tax? And I sort of asked Twitter, and they're like, on balance, they said yes. And so I sold enough stock to get to around 10% plus the option exercise stuff. And I try to be extremely literal. So that you don't generally need to read between the lines. You can just read the lines. Mm-hmm. So that's it.
As the fattest guy here, I want to know when are you going to make the candy company? You said on Twitter that you're making a candy company.
But you did say I am super, super serious. We've got the receipts.
I think if you put two supers before serious,
that makes it
then
not
that's
serious.
you're probably not serious, Just FYI for satire writers out there.
Yeah.
I thought that locked it in as definitely serious.
Yeah. He's explaining jokes to it.
Yeah. It's just guys. Let me tell you how jokes and satire works. I was just making fun of Warren Buffett, who's he's got this candy company and stuff. So,
That was my one question.
That's what you got.
You can go.
No, I did actually experiment with trying to find some compelling candy that would be like, I don't know, maybe much better than other candy. We tried various candy options, but I didn't find any. I couldn't figure out a candy that was like just way better than other candy. Like a little bit better, but not a lot better. And so I was like, unless it's like really a great product, then
You looked into this. You like
So you
really
actually-
looked into it.
Yeah, did.
Like a lab?
Oh.
Yeah,
Have Oompas.
yeah. We tried a whole bunch of different candies, and it was like, there's not anything like that's obviously just way better. So I don't want to just have like a pretty good candy. If there's like a great candy.
What are your thoughts on the metaverse, which like takes technology to the next level and puts us in like a virtual world? Like, do you see that as being dangerous, hopeful for humanity? Like, what's your view on that?
I don't know if I necessarily buy into this metaverse stuff. Although people talk to me a lot about it. It's Web3, you know, I'm like, sure, you can put a TV on your nose.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that makes you in the metaverse, you know. It's like weird, like, you know, when I grew up, it was like, don't sit too close to TV, it's going to ruin your eyesight.
Right.
And now I got like TV is like literally right here. I'm like, what? Is that good for you? I mean, have you tried these games, you know?
The VR, Oculus stuff.
Yeah, they're okay, you know, but like it gives you motion sickness if you try to walk around. Like you can do a video game on your sort of computer, console, or whatever, and you can be in a first-person game and move rapidly and not get motion sickness. But if you try to do that with VR goggles, you get motion sickness. It's like weird. So then you have to like teleport around with. It's okay. So. It doesn't feel like that's the answer necessarily. You know, I don't feel like hey, is this, you know, have I just gotten too old and like, am I like one of those people who was like dismissing the internet, whatever, 95 as being like some fad or something that's never going to amount to anything? You know, some old codger sort of dismissing the internet in 95 is not amounting to anything. So there's some danger with that. That's the case. But I currently am unable to see a compelling metaverse situation, or Web3 sounds like more marketing than reality. I don't get it, you know, and maybe I will, but I don't get it yet, let me put it that way. You know, as you increase the CO2 concentration in the oceans and atmosphere, you increase the risk of something going wrong. I'm not like in the camp of the super alarmist global warming. I think, like, I don't think we're like screwed because of like the current parts per million of CO2 in the ocean's atmosphere. I think like this is actually not a terrible level. However, there's so much inertia in the direction of mining and burning hydrocarbons that, you know, the world is still overwhelmingly dependent on mining and burning hydrocarbons. So, you know, if this continues and you start really driving up the CO2 in the oceans and atmosphere, then there's increased risk of accelerating climate change, basically warming up the oceans and raising the sea level. So I think that's like, I think that's probably just not a wise risk to take, since we will in any case have to transition to sustainable energy long term, because we will eventually run out of oil and coal to mine and burn. Then why run the experiment to see if, you know, to see if something bad will happen with a high CO2 concentration in the oceans and atmosphere? Like, it's a pointless experiment. Like, we know we have to get to some sustainable energy economy. It's tautological. Like, so I think we should try to get there sooner so as not to run the risk of climate change. Humans love living right on the ocean. So it's like, we're almost like a thermometer. It's like if we're living right on the beach, okay, so this is like, so even small changes in the sea level will put a lot of houses underwater. Even little changes, not have to be big. We've just inherently created civilization that is highly sensitive to changes in temperature. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sort of into like vilifying the oil and gas industry, because I think the reality is, like, if we don't have oil and gas right now, civilization would collapse, and everyone would be starving. So we obviously need oil and gas right now. It would be absurd to just stop it. Like, it's not feasible. But I do think we should be trying to accelerate progress towards a sustainable energy future, not slow it down. I think it's just a sensible thing to do to try to move faster to a sustainable energy economy rather than slower, because that reduces the risk of the climate experiment.